Here to discuss this is Oklahoma Republican Congressman Jim Lankford. Congressman Lankford, it's a pleasure. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Hey, glad to be back with you, Judge.
So I'm going to use a cliche that everybody's using this week. The White House and the Republicans are eyeball to eyeball. Joe Biden is watching. Who's going to blink first?
Yeah, well, I don't anticipate that the House Republicans will be the one to blink first on this one. I don't get any stomach at all from anyone saying this is a great time in America to raise taxes. Wouldn't that be a good idea? No, it would not be a good idea.
Will the Republicans blink on the issue of raising the debt ceiling? Stated differently, will you accept some sort of an unenforceable deal, unwritten promise from the Democrats or maybe even from your leadership that would induce you to authorize the Treasury Secretary to borrow $2.4 trillion in the next 12 months?
Yeah, let me tell you what we're really facing. We hit it a lot with Republicans and Democrats. There's a lot of mixture in between on how they're thinking about this debt ceiling. There's two real groups that are out there. One is the group that thinks we have a debt ceiling vote crisis, and the other one that thinks we have a debt crisis. I'm not of the opinion to think we have a debt ceiling vote crisis, and there's so many people panicking as we run up to that day. We have a debt crisis. We get through this and we end up with $16 trillion in debt. We're even worse off than we were before. We've got to start dealing with long-term solutions. So any proposal that's out there doesn't start resolving the long-term solutions, needs to just be pushed to the back and say, how are we going to solve this?
Do you think that the administration and even the Senator Harry Reids of the world are and Secretary Geithner are acting responsibly with their predictions of gloom and doom? Even yesterday, the president contradicted himself when he said August 2nd is the deadline. Then he said, well, maybe we can go beyond that. Is it a deadline or isn't it? Can we believe what they say or can't we?
You know what? I keep coming back to the story of the boy who cried wolf. We keep getting a different date, a different date, a different date. And we understand at some point in the story of the boy that cried wolf, the wolf does come at some point. We get that. So we just can't keep pushing this out and keep spending the same way we're spending and keep pressing on the same way and think that nothing will occur. But neither do we just turn around and say, okay, let's just add it. Again, let's just do it. We've increased the debt ceiling more than 70 times in the last 40 years. So we've got to start solving this, not just chunking more debt onto our grandchildren.
You know, Congressman Lankford, I agree with everything you say, and I wish that a majority of the House did. But do you have a feeling that the debt ceiling will go up? That the Democrats will entice enough Republicans to join them to authorize the government to engage in more borrowing. And you and I may be having the same conversation, assuming you're there and I'm here, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when this president or another president runs out of the $2.4 trillion and wants to borrow more.
Well, let's first begin with the proposition that it would be a different president that does that, and let's start with that in the 2013 time period. But on the other side of it, we've got to find a real long-term solution, and to me, that's a balanced budget amendment. What failed by one vote in the Senate, passed the House, went to the Senate, failed by one vote in the Senate back in the 1990s. Think how different our debate would be this week if we actually had that balanced budget amendment that fell short. We now have a vote scheduled in the House in the end of July on a balanced budget amendment that is a serious proposal. 47 Republicans in the Senate have already signed on. An overwhelming group in the House has signed on. We're going to try to make this a major part of this deal.
Congressman Lankford, will you vote in favor of defense cuts in order to help rein in the profligate spending of the federal government?
Well, that depends on what those defense cuts are. I mean, we're still flying 50-year-old aircraft on a lot of things and saying we're spending too much money, and we are. We're not handling procurement well. We're wasting a lot of money in a lot of areas. We obviously have this big kitty of money sitting over there that the president can just go to Libya and begin a war and not ever approach Congress. So apparently there are idle funds sitting over there in the Defense Department. But I'm not willing to go cut national defense to say we're going to go balance our budget on the backs of what's going on in national defense.
All right,
that just sets us up for another conflict in the days to come.
We'll have you back and we'll talk about defense. Congressman Lankford, it's great to have you. Happy 4th of July to you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, happy birthday, America. Back to you.
Thank you.